Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
Awesome. So today we're going to be tackling this book
Yeah.
called How to Become a People Magnet by Marc Reklau. Have you heard of this one?
I have, yeah. It's a classic for anyone looking to, become more likable and build those connections.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny, I was talking to a friend about this book the other day, and they were like, oh, isn't that just about manipulating people? But it's really not that at all, right?
No, not at all. That's actually one of the first things Reklau addresses in the book.
Mm-hmm.
He's really adamant about building genuine connections, not about using tricks or anything like that.
Right. So no cheesy pickup lines or anything like that?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
It's more about, I guess, understanding human nature and then using that understanding to form those authentic bonds.
I like that. Understanding human nature. Okay, so let's dive into that. What does Reklau say about how we're wired? I mean, what makes us tick?
Well, he doesn't sugarcoat it. He basically says that people are, primarily interested in themselves.
Okay, so we're all a bit self-centered.
Kind of, yeah. But it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just how we're wired.
I can definitely see that. We all have that inner monologue going on all the time, right? It's like we're the stars of our own show.
Exactly. And he actually tells this really funny story about this author who apparently spent 2 hours talking about his book to someone. And then at the end, he was like, so what did you think?
Wow, that's brutal.
Right. But it perfectly illustrates that point about how we tend to be, pretty focused on ourselves.
Okay, so that's human nature. But how do we use that to build better relationships?
Well, that's the interesting part. Recognizing this, I guess, this inherent me mentality can actually be the key to connecting with others more genuinely.
So instead of fighting it, we can use it to our advantage. I like it.
Exactly. And one of the most effective ways to do that is by becoming like a master conversationalist.
Okay, so how do we do that? Talk more, talk less.
Well, it's not necessarily about the quantity of talking. It's about the quality. It's about making the other person feel like they're the most interesting person in the room.
Right, because to them, they are.
Exactly. So it all starts with really listening, like actively listening.
Okay, that makes sense. But active listening, what does that look like in practice?
So it's about, going beyond just hearing the words. You're really engaging with what the other person is saying, asking questions, showing genuine interest. And Reklau emphasizes using you and your a lot.
So it's like speaking their love language, but for, every relationship, not just romantic ones.
That's a great way to put it. It's about making them feel seen and heard and understood.
I love that. Okay, so active listening. Anything else? Any other conversation power moves we can learn?
Oh, yeah, he has a ton. One that I really like is the yes ladder. Have you heard of that one?
The yes ladder. No, tell me more about that.
So it's basically this idea of asking a series of questions that are designed to get the other person to say yes.
Interesting. Why yes specifically?
Because when someone says yes repeatedly, it kind of sets the stage for agreements. They're already in that mindset,
So you're sort of subtly influencing the conversation.
In a way, yeah. But it's not manipulative. It's more about creating a positive flow.
Okay, I can see how that would be really helpful, especially in situations where you're, I don't know, maybe trying to persuade someone or get them to see your point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But even in casual conversations, it can help build rapport and create a sense of, connection.
That's pretty cool. Okay, so we've got active listening and the yes ladder. Any other gems from Reklau's book that we can put into practice?
Oh, tons. He talks a lot about the importance of making people feel important.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do we do that genuinely? I mean, nobody wants to be showered with fake compliments, right?
It has to be authentic. But little things go a long way, like remembering their name, giving them your full attention when they're talking, offering sincere compliments when you notice something you genuinely admire.
Oh, compliments. I think I read somewhere that Dale Carnegie, the author of How to Win Friends and Influence People, he literally saved someone's life with a compliment.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was H.G. Wells, the science fiction writer. Apparently, he was considering suicide, but then Carnegie gave him this really heartfelt compliment, and it completely changed his perspective.
Wow, that's incredible.
Right. It really shows you the power of making someone feel seen and appreciated.
And it's not just about feel-good moments. Studies have shown that, teams with managers who praise and acknowledge their employees are way more productive.
So it's not just about being nice, it's like a smart strategy for success.
Exactly. It's a win-win. It makes people feel good, and it gets results.
I love it. Okay, so making people feel important, that's definitely going on my list of people magnet strategies. But what about when things get a little tougher? Like, what about disagreements? Does Reklau address that?
He does. And you know what? He says don't argue, even if you're right.
Wait, what? Even if I'm right? Come on. That's tough. I have to be right.
I know, right? It goes against our nature. But his point is that nobody really wins in an argument.
Yeah, I guess you can win the battle but lose the war.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's about choosing to be agreeable even when you disagree.
That's a tough pill to swallow, but I see what he's saying. So pick your battles, right?
Exactly. Pick your battles. It's interesting, as we keep talking about all these strategies, I keep thinking they all kind of boil down to that golden rule thing.
Treat others how you want to be treated.
Yeah, exactly.
It sounds so simple.
It does, doesn't it?
But I think there's a lot of wisdom in it.
Oh, definitely. I mean, think about it. Like, if you crave compliments, right? Shouldn't you be giving out more compliments? If you're yearning for admiration, shouldn't you be looking for ways to admire other people?
Yeah, totally. You attract what you put out into the world, right?
Exactly.
What you said about remembering people's names, though, that's like my biggest weakness.
Oh, come on. We all have those things, right? But I think it's less about you
Okay.
and more about the other person. How does it make you feel when someone remembers your name?
Oh, it's the best. Like, I feel so seen.
Exactly. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It makes you feel valued and respected.
Yeah.
And that's what builds those strong connections.
So true. It's like that saying, a person's name is to that person the sweetest and most important sound in any language or something like that.
Right. And Reklau even suggests, making it a practice.
Oh.
To practice remembering names, like with everyone you meet.
Oh, God.
The barista,
Right.
CEO, just make an effort.
Yeah, I guess it's like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get at it.
Exactly.
Okay, so remembering names, check.
But back to the arguments thing. I'm still struggling with this idea of not arguing even if I'm right. Isn't it important to stand up for what you believe in?
Of course. But I think what he's saying is, like, is it really worth it?
Yeah.
To win the argument,
Mm-hmm.
but damage the relationship?
That's a good point. So it's more about choosing your battles wisely. Yeah, exactly. And even when you do have to address a disagreement, it's about finding that common ground, being diplomatic, trying to see things from their side.
De-escalate, not escalate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, got it. But what about those situations where you do have to address something directly? Like, what if an employee is constantly messing up? How do you give feedback without being a jerk?
Yeah, that's where this whole feedback thing comes in, right?
The feedback
I
sandwich.
love the feedback sandwich.
Yeah.
So instead of criticizing, think of it more as like offering helpful feedback.
Okay.
It's about being specific about the issue,
Yeah.
focusing on the behavior, not the person.
So instead of saying, you're always late, you'd say something like, hey, I notice you've been late to a few meetings lately. Is everything okay?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. It feels less accusatory, for
Look,
sure.
and don't forget the sandwich part. Start with some praise,
Uh-huh.
then give the feedback, and then end with more praise.
So they leave feeling good.
Exactly. You're basically reminding them of their strengths, even while you're addressing the areas where they need to improve.
I like it. But even with all that, sometimes things can still get a little awkward.
Oh, for sure.
Any advice for handling those moments?
Well, Reklau talks a lot about body language,
Oh, right.
like the power of mirroring.
Mirroring, like looking in a mirror.
Not exactly. It's more about subtly matching the other person's body language.
Oh, interesting.
Their posture, their gestures. It helps build rapport.
I guess it's like non-verbally saying, hey, I'm on your team.
Exactly.
Wow, there's so much to unpack here. But we're running short on time for this segment. Is there one thing our listeners can start doing today to improve their people magnet skills?
You know what? One thing Reklau really emphasizes is this idea of tackling problems head on.
Oh, you mean like facing your fears?
More like facing those issues you've been avoiding.
Oh, I'm guilty of that.
He says that avoiding problems just makes them bigger and causes more stress in the long run.
He's right. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. Just get it over with.
Exactly. So what's one problem you've been putting off? Think about it. And then ask yourself, what's one small step I can take today to start addressing it?
That's a great question for all of us to think about. Welcome back, everyone. We're wrapping up our deep dive into Marc Reklau's How to Become a People Magnet. And wow, there's so much good stuff in here, right?
It really is a goldmine of insights.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about that human tendency towards me,
Yeah.
about mastering conversations, giving genuine praise, even navigating disagreements.
And that feedback sandwich, that was a good one. But it all kind of boils down to this idea of building authentic connections.
Absolutely. It's about those relationships that truly enrich our lives and make us feel well connected.
Exactly. And, speaking of challenges, Reklau throws out this big one.
Oh, yeah.
He says, don't take anything personally.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
Right. Especially these days when it feels like everyone's just waiting to be offended.
It's definitely easier said than done,
Huh?
but he makes this really interesting point.
Yeah.
He says that when we take things personally, we're essentially giving our power away.
Giving our power away. How so?
Well, we're letting other people's opinions and actions dictate how we feel. We're giving them control over our emotional state.
It's like that saying, what other people think of me is none of my business. But man, that's easier said than done.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes practice. But one thing that really resonated with me is that it's often not even what the person said that hurts us. It's what we tell ourselves afterwards.
Oh, that's so true. It's those inner critic voices coming out to play.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
like all those unhealed wounds and insecurities just waiting to be triggered.
So what's the antidote? How do we stop taking things so personally?
Well, I think it's a combination of things, right? Building our self-awareness so we can recognize those triggers, working on our self-esteem so we feel more secure in ourselves.
Right, and not surrounding ourselves with people who constantly bring us down.
Precisely. It all ties back to that idea of choosing our company wisely, cultivating those relationships that lift us up instead of draining us.
It's like that saying we talked about earlier. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
So true. It's about being mindful of the energy we allow into our lives, weeding out the negativity and making space for those people who make us feel good.
I love that. It's like we're curating our own little social gardens, nurturing the relationships that help us grow and blossom.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, Reklau offers one final piece of advice that I think is really important.
I'm all ears. What is it?
He says to stop making assumptions.
Ugh. Yeah, that's a big one for me. I'm the queen of jumping to conclusions and creating all these stories in my head.
We've all been there. But he's right. Those assumptions can lead to so much misunderstanding and unnecessary drama.
It's like we're creating problems that don't even exist.
Exactly. So instead of stewing in our anxieties and filling in the blanks, he encourages us to just ask, hey.
Just ask, like directly.
Yep. It might feel vulnerable, but direct communication can save us a lot of heartache in the long run.
It's like choosing clarity over chaos, right? Being open and honest instead of letting those misunderstandings fester.
Absolutely. It's about building trust through open communication.
This has been such a fascinating exploration of Reklau's work. I feel like I have a whole new perspective on how to approach relationships.
Me too.
Yeah.
And it's not about becoming some kind of manipulative social butterfly. It's about being genuine, kind, and intentional in our interactions.
It's about understanding human nature and using that knowledge to create connections that are truly meaningful.
Exactly. And as Reklau reminds us, it's a journey, not a destination. So be patient with yourself, keep practicing these principles, and remember that even small changes can make a big difference.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up for today. A huge thank you to our expert for sharing their insights on how to become a people magnet. We hope you found this deep dive helpful and inspiring.
And remember, everyone has the potential to become a people magnet. It starts with a smile, a willingness to listen, and a genuine desire to connect.
Beautifully said. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep those connections strong, and keep spreading that positive energy.